Hi everyone, welcome back into the channel. I promised you on the last one where we did those tulips and stuff that we were going to paint the iris today. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. And these are good lessons for you to learn how to flow those petals together. So there's all kinds of iris. There's, over 300 varieties of iris. This is one that I really like. It's called Blatant, and I love the standards and the falls here being, the different colors and stuff. It gives us such a great way to change those colors up, those tones just a little bit, make a very harmonious composition. We'll talk about that as we get going into the painting. Okay, so I think I'll do that. Now, compositional wise, there's a lot of things I like to teach you about composition and putting it all together and stuff. But there's also other great artists, and I'm a big believer in learning from history. Catherine Klein. Catherine Klein, of course, all of her stuff is in public domain because she passed away so many years ago. But she was a magnificent designer of just putting it together, especially when you're talking about large irises and stuff. So this is an iris a painting that Catherine Klein did. Of course, it would make a nice thing. I think these are, for myself, these are a little bit too close together, but I do, me, for landscapes and stuff, I like strong verticals, especially if my board is going to be a little bit more vertical. So I really like the strong verticals in this particular kind of the painting, but I'd like to see, I still like it formal, but I'd like to move some of that over, so we can do that. We're artists, we can do that. Okay, so I'm going to kind of lean a little bit on some of her compositional skills today. It's lovely. So this will be Blatant will be our main iris that will follow along today. Now for my board, this is a board, and I just have it based with my favorite gray color. This is the MDF board. The gray I make is black, white, and a little bit of yellow. And some of you are asking me a little bit more about it, and I make it up in gigantic because this is my basic. It's kind of like my YouTube gray. This is what I use for a lot of background paintings because it's a neutral and it's easy to shift back and forth to all these different tones. And so I just mix it up in a large container like this. Okay, and so it's a standard MDF board. This is, a lot of you ask me about that. It's a standard MDF board. This is a 1/8 inch MDF board, and I cut it to whatever size I want to do. So this one is the same one I used on the tulips there. It's an 11 inches, so it's 11 inches across this way, 18 inches this way, and this time we'll do it into the vertical, okay? And then I just give it one base coat of my gray, my favorite gray, and then I sand it. And when I sand it, I use a special paper, which I thought I had out here, but I guess I don't. I use a special sandpaper, which is 180 grit. Oh, here it is right here. Right in front of my face. I got too many visual aids out here. This is so this is when you can get in Amazon anywhere, but it's 180 grit, and it's a painter's paper, and it just sands it really nice. You just sand it lightly, and it makes a really smooth surface. Now I like the smooth surface, and a lot of you write me about painting on canvas and stuff like that, and that's fine. But when I'm doing a flower or something like some of the rose in the rose series and some of these, like this iris today, I don't like those. I don't like to fight the weave of the canvas. Now there's some techniques that I do, but I don't like to fight the weave of the canvas. So I like the smooth board so that I control the granulation of the paint, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And also today, I also want to talk about. I built this frame. Let me set it up here. This is a frame that I thought, we can take a look at this painting when it's all done, and I'll show you about framing and stuff. And if you'd like, we do at the gallery here, we do all of our own framing, and I build about 80–90% of them, and it's something I really enjoy doing. And this frame cost me about $4 worth of material. It's a molding that you can get right from the Home Depot, and then I cut it into its 45s, and then I use a band clamp to put it all together. And then guess what I base it with? My gray, and I used a little extra medium beige also. So I took these two, and when I put it together, this is a nice base coat, and when I put it together here, when I mix it together and I put it on there, you can see it's unmixed. See how it's unmixed here? So it's not just mixed or base coated with one color. I let streaks and stuff like that happen into the frame, coloring here, because especially when I'm doing Alla prima or something like this, I'm going to allow that. Now this isn't going to be the final color of the frame. I'm going to glaze it with some of my palette colors, and I don't choose that until I'm about towards the end, 3/4 of the way or so with the painting, I start thinking about the frame. So I'll show you how we'll go about that, and we'll take a look at that with today's lesson, okay? All right, so let's talk about it. We're going to have a vertical painting this time, okay? So it's a lot longer than what my camera will show here, unless I make everything really small, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to be using my Fusion brushes. I have my favorite palette out here, like I told you in the last one. Jessica now calls this the YouTube painting palette. This is my Jansen yellow, Darulite yellow, yellow oxide, Naphthol red light, burnt sienna, pine green, phthalo blue, quinacridone violet, red, violet, white. I also, since we're doing Alla prima, I'm also putting out some of the Matisse Derivan Open Medium, which works very well with the Heritage Acrylics, okay? So, as a matter of fact, you know, our Heritage Acrylics here, it's our formula, but Matisse makes it for us. So they manufacture it for us. You know, I created the formula for it, and they manufacture it for us. So they're a fantastic company. I love working with them. I also have out some extender medium. This will slow this. So in the last videos you saw me use this where it's slow drying, and now I do this for the thicker painting. It's slow drying and thin colors and thicker colors, okay? All right, let's get on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a small brush. I'm going to paint this one mostly with flats, but I'm going to use a small filbert here and do a little sketching with you. And like I showed before, when I go to sketching, it goes from landscapes, everything. I've been doing it for a long time. I like to sketch with burnt sienna, something about burnt sienna, but you could sketch with any color you want. I just want to thin it out. I'm just going to use a little extender. You could use a little water, but since I'm painting Alla prima today, I don't want to really use too much water at all, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this thing out of the way here too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit more contemporary, push the iris over to the left side here slightly, because I don't like to put anything on the center line here. So I'm going to push over to the left side, and I'm going to basically add a circle here, or where I think that main iris should be. So I'm going to be down from the top a little bit and a little bit further up from the bottom here, okay? And then right where I want to angle, so this will be its line, this will be its center line here. Matter of fact, the stem will come right down through here and drop down, okay? And then over here, I want to angle one slightly, so I don't always like to come in, and I like how Catherine Klein did this on the angle also. But I want to drop it down a little bit more. So maybe one of the falls, okay, so you have standards, which are the top petals, and then you have the falls down at the lower end here. But maybe one of the falls is going to come over this iris here on this side. Now, when you're sketching, okay, don't, of course a lot of us don't, but don't try to make it too perfect or put out too many lines that will impede your creativity later. So we're going to be putting on the standards and the falls, the petals, but we don't want to put them on so specific that it's so rigid that it is going to hinder our creativity or our ability to change it later. Does that make sense? Because you've got to give that to yourself, that freedom when you're working with something like this. So as I go to sketch this out, this is going to be my center, and basically of what the iris is going to be. Right up through here is where I'm going to start basically the falls. So this is going to be where the petals are going to fall down. And when I create a fall here, let's just give the idea, and let's look over to this one. Now, see, this is a great one here that's twisted here, and so that has a pretty good idea for that, and we can look at that one there and bring that fall back up into here, and that drops down this side. You can even let some of the fall go right over the edge there like that. That'll work really great. But I do like in Catherine Klein's, where you see that strong vertical right here coming down going right where the tulip is transitioning to the calyx of the tulip right down here. And you see some of that green, so I like that. So I want to leave some of that strong transition there as well. As I come up over here, here's my center line, so the beginning of this fall here, and we could ruffle the edges and do whatever we want. I mean, this standard. So we can, but I'll push probably the standard down about that shape right into there. We might have a bit of the back one showing up here as a little ruffly edge. You know, of course, the irises can get really ruffle up quite a bit here. Let's bring this out at a slight angle before dropping it down, so we don't have to be, matter of fact, let's angle that one out just a bit more here too. We don't have to be absolutely super precise with anything here. Let's drop this in here, okay, and let's leave some of that showing and drop this other fall, this other petal right out here. This is a bearded iris. The blatant is a bearded iris, so the beard would come right down through here. And we don't really see it here on this one since we've mixed it, but we'll have to give the indication of the other fall, and see there's just a little one here. And so I look now at the size of this iris. Now this iris is they're about the size of my hand, and so it's pretty much like the life size. I might shave it down a bit, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. It's size-wise, because I have a tendency to, as I am painting something, to grow, you know. So if I start out a little bit big, then that could become a problem later on. So I'll show you how we can do that. But let's just casually put out the back standards here of one where it's going to be here. This one will be more color more than anything else. We might have the big, like Catherine does right here, the big fall, another one coming off right over here. And that can be right there, and we'll probably separate those just a bit more. Now I know that looks pretty huge on here, but it isn't quite that big. We step back just a bit there and see here, but let's go back just a bit here and move that. We go just back just a bit so you can see a little bit more of that, but I don't want to get it so small it's hard for you guys to see. Okay, so I'm going to set that brush down here for a second. I love to manipulate the background. When I manipulate the background, you see me all the time. You go right into my my background colors. I love the blues. I like a little bit of this burnt sienna in it. You could have, since we have violets in the in the iris here today, violet is a real good color to use. And I'm going to thin down just a bit here, some of this, just a bit. So I see where it is that I want to go with this painting. So I'm going to use some blues right up through here. You know me, I like backgrounds that have movements and stuff like that into it. And I'll put a bunch of stuff on. I'll soften it with my paper towel. Sometimes I'll just start to automatically soften right into my sketch, my idea of the sketch. Now that may bother some of you, but it is something that is kind of fun to do because it keeps your mind, you can, well, let me put it this way. When I was a young artist, I'd get lost and I'd get petrified the second I lost my sketch or my pattern, that I was emulating. And as I became more confident as an artist, that diminished. That I didn't worry about that anymore. And so it is something that I want you, a lot of you ask me, how do you get more casual and stuff? And I try to answer. One way is paint into your sketch. Eliminate something of it so that you have to constantly adjust it and do something a little bit different. That's one way of doing it, and I love the lost edges of it. We sketched it once. We can go back and sketch it again, and when you're sketching and you're working something, it's just an idea, and if you make it really soft, then it's easy to change. Does that make sense? You're not locked into it, and I don't want to be locked in by anything that I do here. I'm going to take a little green right over here with this, and let's put some of this lovely burnt sienna. I love the burnt sienna colors. And let's just drop some of this color in here. You know me, I like to just push that in, and we'll pull that across a bit. And we'll probably put in a little bit more. And yeah, I wiped out some of my other sketches, but I know what is there. I know what I liked when I first did it, and this allows me to change it a little bit later on. Let's just put a hint of this color right out over here like that. There, and that will help, and we'll continue our working on this, okay? All right. So I'm going to go to my larger, my favorite. You can tell it's my favorite. You can't even see anything. There's a buildup of paint on here that fits my hand, which is really quite nice. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you rotate your brush till it fits, with it? When I was when I real avid rose mauler and mechanicals of it, I'd always find myself rotating the brush till it fit my hand exactly. Then I knew exactly what it was I was like doing. But anyway, let's go in, and we're going to start out. I'm going to start out slightly soft here, some yellow oxide and some Hansa yellow, and I'm going to paint a little thicker here now. So I'm going to put some open medium in some of this, and what we'll do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to small down just a little bit in from my sketch. So I'll even leave some of that burnt sienna showing there, and we'll small this down. And we just start to push some colors into where the standards are. And I do love this. I do love changing my mind immediately about something here. The sketch is an idea. That's all it is. It's just an idea. So I've got these, basically, you have one standard out here in the back, one on each side up here. We're probably going to open up. I do like on this one blatant how it opens up, because then we can go in there and get the stigma and the stamen and stuff like that in there. So we might do that. We'll come back over here to some of our violet, our quinacridone violet. Let's add some extender to this. Now, this is going to be a little bit, not for right now, for the first base in, it's going to be a little bit too powerful. So I'm going to add some yellow to it and a little white, a little bit of green here, and lighten this up, but also make it a little bit more softer tone. It's toning it down just a bit. So let's drop some of this in, right down in here, okay? And we'll get and see what I'm doing is, right now we're going to have a fold, because I'll paint a fold onto this one. But I don't want to lose that one edge there, Dave, so don't get too crazy here. And I do like this other fold right here, and we'll get that. Okay, but I want to kind of model it in here. We're going to go very specific with our strokes and some of the flow of the petals and stuff. We'll get more specific, but not quite yet. I'll push this right into the background here, and let's just lose some of these back edges just by pushing it here, losing the paint, letting some of the background go through. Then we'll lose some of those edges, and they'll stay softer here. Let's just lose some of these edges. And likewise, what I do a lot of times, and I'm an edge painter, right? And I just had a dirty brush of green here, but I'm an edge painter. And so what I like to do a lot of times is I'll take some of those colors and paint them right into that edge, lose that edge back and forth with my wet color and this. So this is going to keep it nice and soft here to this iris here. And we can do other things, but I like, see, my dirty brush even did some nice stuff there, gave some nice backgrounds and stuff here. But I'm keeping everything loose. I want to keep everything loose right now. We want to learn how to paint more casual with this stuff. Get more casual, paint really loose. Don't get anything stiff, especially on a iris. And if you're going to paint this blatant, I mean, really, Catherine Klein softened hers out quite a bit, which this would take a lot of work if I wanted. I can emulate some of this really quickly. I'll show you how to do that. But, this would painting all the folds and stuff. And there's others. I've done other longer videos where I show how to do that. But it would take a tremendous amount of time. So, it's something that I don't always do. But to give me the ability to work it, I like to have where I can, have some heavier color and some softer color. This is going to allow me to change. And I'm probably going to open up through here. So I'm going to change my mind, right? See, we're going to change our mind of our sketch already. So if I like that other blatant one there, I'm going to take some light, and I look in there and see it's got, because this would be really pretty. See, you got these light tones in here, and some of this, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, is more of a red-violet tone, which is kind of pretty. So let's just open up, and let's just inject some of that tone. Now notice how my brush moves, and I'm going to use thicker paint, stiffer paint, so it has a lot of nice movement to it here. I'm going to inject that right there, right now, right into that center of that, because that's pretty. See how that's pretty. So kind of explode up and out, lift the pressure off here like this. Okay, let that soften out. Now, on the blatant, you also see it has some pull downs on the front fall here. It has some pull downs of that light color, but we can just emulate that. We can pull down. Let's put a little bit of that pink right out here too. And let's just pull down some of that light right out of here right now. Just use your brush flat like this. Remember how we do landscapes? How I showed you on the Alla prima, the pear. Use the brush flat and pull it down, and then you can push with your finger to help, you know, set the movement of the paint in other ways. Remember we did that on the pears and everything. Let's put just a touch of that, even though you don't see too much of that over here. Let's put just a touch of that. Hey, there's 300 varieties of irises. There's going to be one that looks like this, I promise you. You know, even if we change blatant a little bit here, change this iris a bit. So you get some nice pretty colors, you know, changing there. Let's gray down. Let's not use the bright. Let's use yellow oxide and some white. Add some open medium to it here. And let's drop this in. Probably are going to want that a little darker, a little more tone. So I'm going to grab some green, some violet. See how this grays it right on down? And it gives you a nice color of harmony here. So we'll just drop some of this color in, right in there. Right like that. And yeah, and we'll do the, so that sets up that. Then we'll do the fall here. We'll just add some of that yellows and greens and the whites right into here, and just see how it grays it down. See the gray? See the difference here between the real light and bright, and then how it lightens and grays. That's what we want to do. Lighten it and gray it so it stays soft. So get it right into those greens and those yellows. This is all good harmony. All these colors work. And see, that'll just be a pretty color right down in there like that. Dirty palette. I used to teach a lot about dirty palette painting. And that's where you are, let's say like here, this would be a dirty palette. So I'm working my complements very, very close together. And I slide them back and forth depending on the tone that I want. So if I want a receding tone, something that's going to go, you know, further back, which is what I'm doing here, then I step away from the green this way, and I'll get a tone that will be brighter and come forward, see? And if I want it to gray down and go back, then I step further back here, and I get a grayer tone that I can use for suggesting here the back bottom falls of that one right there, okay? So you can work those quite well. Let's take a little burnt sienna with that yellow, nice warm here. Let's just work some shadow right up here. And I haven't quite decided on the standards there yet, how I'm going to do that, but you know, that'll come. I know that will come. I don't worry about stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, so with this, let's take some of that nice, beautiful burnt sienna and let's work some of that. We're going to put the beard on that, but let's just work some of that in here, right into where the stamen and stuff is, the center of the iris, right in here. Let's work some of that. That tone in and out up there. We don't have to be perfect with our anatomy of it. We just want to give a nice indication of it here, okay? I love that violet and stuff moving there. I'm just going to get rid of some of that out of my brush with a bit of extender, but I love that working through there. I love that soft. Matter of fact, we can blush a little bit of that softness of that violet back up just a little bit more here, especially as I'm going to go into some of these yellows. Now, so I've got it kind of blocked in, and you can see, isn't it just gorgeous? It's blocked in, and you can see the colors here, okay? And so now what I want to do is I'm going to, with Alla prima, I like to work some of my shadows and stuff first. So I'm going to come down here to some of my red violet. And the blatant has some really nice dark red violets, that you're going to get right up in through here. Now I could gray that down, but I'm going to take a first look at just red violet, which I do like. So there's a rolled petal right here. And so I'm basically going to just pull out into the feeling that I want this petal to have. So put the shadow in, and then I'll just pull out, and I'll push and pull. Remember on the tulips, when we talked about the tulips, how we talked about the flow of the petals? Well, an iris is the same. That's why I wanted to paint these two real close together, because the petals are going to flow. And like in the main one here, you see this beautiful S here. This is an S, and the leaf and the front of this petal here folds over, and we can do that. But I do like the light color of an S, like coming down the center of a fall. So if you follow that same vein line, you'll see it going out here, and then that vein line radiates out just like onto the tulip. I mean, the tulip that we did last time. So if you can do the tulip, you can do this one. Let's take some of this light. Now back here I might want to go a little thinner, so I'm going to thin my paint. I don't want it to have as much power, and I'm going to interject just a little bit of that shadow, just a hint of it here. So the paint's thinner, doesn't have very much power, but it gives a nice beautiful little movement there. And see, we can let some of that blue show through and all that kind of stuff, and some of that transparency, and we can just leave that. I mean, that looks good enough. But we want to help this fold out here, so let's take some quinacridone here, maybe a little bit of light into that quinacridone, and get just a bit more of that. I can feel, those of you paint with the open medium, I start to feel when I have enough of it, how sticky it is. I'm going to pull down to the front of this fold, leave just that little light edge there, and maybe I can leave more streaks, but I want to blur the back edge there so it kind of falls off there, okay? And we'll thin. If I want something in the back to recede, I go back to my thin color. I don't try to have too much color. Let's gray that out a bit. Here's what I want, Dave. And let's gray that out. And let's just, I'm not going to copy the iris perfectly, because this is my painting here. But I would like a bit of this back and forth of the light and shadow, kind of setting up the movement of the iris here. The movement here of this. So I'll just slowly work into that, pulling it down, that movement of those petals. And so it gives a better idea there of that. On the blatant, on the original, you will pick up little hits of some of the yellow and little hits of some light, and so that's where I like diffusion. I just use that corner, just like we loading for, I showed you guys so much the petal edging technique. You could use that corner of the brush to draw any kind of movement to the petals that you might want to have. So I could, enhance this folding of this petal here just by lightly indicating that it's folding down there like that, pushing that in like that is one way here. Let's take a little softer. It's going to have just an edge right there, and we'll redraw this dark down this way here. So what I'm looking at here is this folded little back part, and that coming down through here, and I'm just going to emulate it. I'm not going to get it in there perfect, and I'll control here. I want this iris to be a little softer, so I'll control that with how much dark I actually apply there onto those petals here. Okay, all right, so let's just take a little bit of that thin dark here, and we'll do a bit of this, almost like, let's get that where we're going to put the beard on this one, and this front petal coming out down this way here. And now what we'll do is we'll take some of this dark here, we'll actually add some quinacridone here to it. Let's add some open medium, about an equal amount of each, so I get a little transparency. And let's start right in through here, Now, well, actually, let's start right up through here. Here's going to be the center vein line of the iris petal itself, coming down this side, okay? Where this one's looking right at you for good photography, I'm turning this one slightly to the side. So I put on that center vein line. Now everything is going to flow up into, remember like we talked on the tulip, how I said it was a fan, that it comes down, and it really is. And then of course you can waver it and do all kinds of stuff. On the side it might not be, but here in the front it's more like a fan. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull some of this. Let me set this right back up here out of the way. So I'm going to pull some of this, and if I'm not sure, I'll just be suggestive, but basically what I want to do is just start to pull some of this light and dark here back and forth right in, so I get that movement right there like that of the colors into the iris there, see? But I have the paint thinned with with an equal amount of the open medium here, so it doesn't have a tremendous amount of power. So I'm going to follow out like this and pull it out. Fan it out, just like that. Here. And I'll work it together there, like that. We'll darken right along that line a little bit and pull out some. And this is where I start to play back and forth with some of the color here, which is going to give you some of this nice contrast. I can start on the chisel like this and follow that down. I build it up. But see, I can build it up slow because my paint is not completely opaque here. It's been mixed down. Now, if I want something to really have a lot of power, now I'll just step off to the side here. Just a little bit of that red violet here. And I don't have to add anything to it because there's already enough medium down. And see, this now has more power to it right into that center area. And I can build that paint up all the time. So a lot of times before, you see me many times, especially if I'm doing a half-tone technique or something like that, that you see me mix the specific tone and put it in. But also remember, with good Alla prima painters, and you're using these mediums like this, and when I was an oil artist, we did it with linseed oils and stuff. We would control the opacity of the colors and stuff that we're working with. So yeah, you can do all different kinds of stuff here. And I'll get a good mixture of the thin and thick colors here, so I can get some of these beautiful movements to the petals. Now, and it is the opacity that you're working with here. So we'll put a bit of that thick color right down here on a beautiful part of the iris here. We'll break the edge just a touch to give yourself some, that gives you some nice undulations there to that iris right there like that. Let's come back in. These are the edge petals right up here. I just kind of pull in that way. Now I can see, I like that kind of a streak that's right there. In the actual iris, blatant is going to have some lights coming back the other way. And so I'll just dirty up some of my light here. It's mottled. See how you can see a few different colors in here. And I'll just use kind of the chisel here and pull some of that out here, so I get I don't want to get, matter of fact, I don't always like the kind of tiger stripiness right in here. If I'm Alla prima painting like this and I want something to be very much artistic, I kind of, will move my values or tones in an area together just a little bit so that they don't have exactly the same feeling or as much detail. That's a better way to put it here. But I still like that light and dark emulation there. So I'll move it together like this. So you got the feeling of the light, but you don't have the perfect stripes. Now you can. This is up to you. How much detail and stuff like that you're going to add, that's all up to you. But I can put it on, then use my chisel and just pull some of that out and get a beautiful, beautiful look to it right like that. And let's just lighten this up right up here up on the top. That looks good. We'll put I like on this one blatant here, it has this darker little fold that comes right down in there. So we'll push a little dark and it folds down right in there. We'll get just a bit more. Up here in the front, I'm not afraid to use the darks here at all. you know, in any of the painting, in any of the area, because that is nice contrast for nice contrast for it. So let's just put a little dark coming out on this side here. I like that. And you can build up a little bit more of those harsher or darker vein lines if you want, slowly. But remember, so now I'm working with less medium, more paint, and getting a nice opacity here to the iris, to the edges of it and stuff. So that looks kind of good. Now, I'm going to rinse my brush here for a second because I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to, once I do that, I'm going to put it back into a little extender, and I do this so that the water doesn't not stay in my system here. I'm going to take a little light, and I'm going to negative paint some of the background that the iris is sitting on right back up in here, so that you get a little through light in some of that area there. Right out here like that, just a little through light. We'll push some of that through light right up here. And that's something I like to do. We'll blur that edge just a bit there, so that if I feel like the petals are colliding with each other too much, I'll do that. I'll put through light in there. Now, there's also light edge that you can get here. There's also a light edge that you can get right along the edge here, which we do see on blatant here. And if you want to put that light fluffy edge there, we can do something like that as well. You can take just a touch of that here and push that on. Just use the corner of the brush, just tap it and push it a little bit and get some of that light right in there, and that's really kind of pretty. There is a darker run here of it. There's the train. I've been talking to some of you about the train. It always seems, yeah, it's just right about this time in the day. We'll drop this one in just a little darker, and you can take out a bit of that light, but I'll just leave that right there. And that's kind of pretty, that one sitting right up there like that, I think. Let's go up to, I won't clean my brush this time. I'm just going to get rid of some of the extra violet out of it. And let's go up and let's work on some of our yellows. We'll come right down here. Yellow and violet, these are almost complements to each other, so I can use these to help tone each other. See, I just touch into a little bit of that, and you get just a little bit of the toning here. Let's set up the structure of this front fall here, or excuse me, front standard, and we'll push an S in just like that, okay? And I'm going to blur that off, but I want to leave some of that movement there of that front standard, that top standard there, just like that, okay? So you see that. Let's push this off over into the side over here. Matter of fact, maybe I'll push this one over just a bit more. We'll push that standard off over there like that. I want to leave some of this opened up here into the center here. Okay. Let's go slightly darker, maybe a bit of the violet right here inside of this yellow oxide, and we'll put on the front kind of ruffly edge here with some dark, because I want the inside of that to be lighter. So this is just so I see it. I'm almost like drawing it. Now, you have the violet here, but don't forget we have that beautiful burnt sienna, which would be magnificent in this this particular one here as well. And we can push this edge here. So now I got the center, the fall of it there, and then I have the center of it there where I can see a little bit of the stigma and the stamen and the crest and stuff in there, but I don't have to put in a tremendous amount of detail there. Let's come right back up over here for a second. We'll put in this side a bit more here. Maybe that'll come back in here. And now we can do fluffy edges out there. You can do brighter fluffy edges, like on the blatant here itself has brighter fluffy edges. We can start a little lighter fluffy edge. You can push it out a little bit and pull it back in here. But I really want to leave some of that lost. I'm going to be looking for tonal movement. I want to leave some of this lost here. And so right now I'm just putting some tones in, getting some tones in here, and then I'll shape it here in just a minute. But I just want to break up and get some tones. And I think I'm going to build that center up just a bit more with some light right in here. So we'll move that light through. And let's also get just a touch of that soft violet through there, because I did like that look of that. So now we build that up and in here. Now as we come up to the front, you can use that petal edging technique that I show you guys all the time to just kind of go along the edge and set in some light hits, maybe some Hansa, maybe some Darulite here. The yellows change. You can use this just to hit little lights and stuff, and as the petals fold and twist here, just little bits like this, just kind of fluffy it, move it around here, and draw that edge, let it run right into the dark we put on there. So you get this nice little undulation there to the petals, and build a bit more of this right up here. And sometimes you're going to have to, you make artistic statements as to, are you going to change some of that photo just for clarity or visualization of what it is that you're painting in here, since we're actually relaxing a lot of the design. And so, where I might see some shadows and stuff on something, like on the reference photo that I'm kind of referring to it, but I'm not copying it. You see me a lot copy, real photos. When I paint the irises and stuff, I like lots of lost and found, and I find that some of them are so fluffy that you just get lost in there, and it's on these big tall standards, you just get lost, and it becomes really hard, and it not only hard to paint, but hard to follow along with the shape of the standard. So it's just kind of fun to do your own thing. So here's my center vein line though, right? Everything I do, no matter what it is I do, no matter how I fold and bend this petal, has to come in towards that center vein line of the standard. Does that make sense? That's what gives it its life, is this center vein line. And if you need to, restate it a couple times. Let's go a little lighter right up through here and out right up into that area there, and let it just kind of flow out right like that. Just flow out into the tall standard there all by itself. See? Makes it look like you know what you're doing. And you're just flowing it. You're just saying, here's the center vein line, or here's the center petal line, basically. And everything has got to kind of flow out from that and back in towards that line. This is just like, one of the things that, and I know probably the majority of you there don't love it, but I absolutely love rosemary, the Norwegian rosemary. And you can find it on our Paint It Simply channel. There's a style of rosemary called Gudbrandsdal, and especially Lessa Gudbrandsdal. And it is folding of the acanthus, which is the oldest of all design principles, is the Greek acanthus. It comes from 600 BC. And it's one of the first things that I learned how to draw. And if you can draw acanthus, just Google acanthus and acanthus drawings and watch what comes up. You'll see these beautiful folding, flowing scrolls, massive scrolls. And that's what you see in wrought iron work, scrolls, all that kind of stuff everywhere. It is absolutely magnificent. And I spent years, the majority of my adult life, studying the flow of acanthus. So painting an iris like this is really quite simplistic acanthus. It really is. And so I would say if you can paint acanthus, you can paint an iris. And if you want to really, if you think your irises are a little too stiff, go study something else like acanthus, and it'll teach you how to paint other things. Acanthus is quite a wonderful thing. Let's put that, there's that lighter center vein line right up here in the back standard there. Let's kind of get that in, and then flow out of it just a bit. So this is going to be my S vein line right into here. So I'm flowing everything here that I'm doing up towards this, and I can do lighter little edges, I can do lights and darks and make, shadows and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into it that deep here today. We're not going to take that kind of time. But I come back and set it, and then set some smaller little bits just to break up some of those other bits there and these folds and restate my light. That vein line is so important to the flow of your standard there. See, that is so important. Just bring that down. Let's bring that down. Okay, and you know, and how much you bring out. See, I'm watching this in relationship to that. How much I want to bring out this standard with how much light I want to bring out the flow of that petal. And of course, this one is flowing this way here. And you know, if you go look at Catherine Klein's and how she flows it and stuff, it's quite a bit more simplistic than, and she had just a beautiful way of doing it. But it's very simplistic compared to what the real, you know, the real irises are. And so it is her way, and it's just, she's just magical. That's just all there is to it. She was such a beautiful composition painter. So here, now, let's take some thin, back up here to our blues here, some thin color. Let's wipe out some of that back there. Let that just stay soft there, working up against that. I like that. I can use some more detail up in there. That's going to pull your eye right in here. Remember the boom? And I love some of your comments on that tulip. You were just going along and then zoom, there went my eye right into that center of interest. And yeah, and so you can do the same thing on this iris, but we probably should put something in the other iris over here first. We want to keep it more of a ghost. Okay, so we want to keep it ghost, so I'm going to paint it thin. I'm going to add some extender to this down here. I'm going to add some of these other little tones into it down here. We're going to take what we see in this one into this one, but it's softer. So I see a little bit of the light, nice light, back up in through the center here. And so we'll push a little bit of the light there. We see a little bit in that front, and the front petal of this other tulip is, or this other iris is not done. So we see a little bit of that light coming out, which we want to emulate, but we don't want to give too much movement. This is our ghost one here, see? Okay, not too much movement there to it. And then, see, we have that dark. Let's go a little bit more yellow, but not bright yellow, right into here. Let's set up just an idea, idea of the flow of this standard up like that with the S, and that sets the flow of that standard there. Let's find the flow of this other standard here, and there's all kinds of ways again to fold them and stuff, but maybe I'll do this one just a little different here. We'll concentrate more on a C shape here, so it's a little different. So you can just barely kind of see it there. Let's make a little bit of our lights and yellows here, just a bit flowing. Everything, no matter what I do, flows into that center vein line. So if I start out through here, I then flow into that line, into that vein, that petal vein, basically, of the standard. It's got to flow. Let's put a little bit of light here, just like that. We'll let this come back here, push that in, soften those effects there. Okay. We put a bit of the burnt sienna. I haven't used any of that red yet. We put a bit of the burnt sienna into this one. So let's do it kind of soft here. That'll help bring out the style crest and stuff, the crest of this. And that center, we'll put the beard in, but that's kind of, I could probably get away with a little more violet right into there. See, that keeps that nice, and I just push it around. It keeps that nice. I want to give the impression of this. This one has a little bit more detail, not as much as you see not nearly as much as what you see in a photo, okay? But it has more detail to it than what this one does. That's basically the rule. Let's put a bit more light And that was kind of the wrong tone there. I had a little bit of violet came out. Bit me. But don't worry, I am a professional. I can fix it. I used to always say that in my classes all the time. So many times it was a little bit embarrassing. You put the wrong stroke. You stand up in front of 100 students, and like one time I was teaching in Taiwan at a university, Taiwan University, and there was a lecture hall. And we had 100 students out there, and I was standing up there painting this little thing, and I messed up. And you could just hear the gasps in the room, like he just screwed it up, and I did. But I'm a professional. I can fix it. Okay, if I can screw it up, I can fix it. That's what I always tell myself. It's just a little bit of paint in the board. Don't worry about it. Breathe, and you can fix it. We can. Let's put a bit of that. I love that Dahlia light. Nice little different tone right in there. But I've got to leave that nice flow, the feeling of that flow. I lost it a little bit here on the top, so let's just re-emphasize that just a bit right out there like that. It leaves a nice flow of that front. Now, you could fold like right here. You could fold these over. Now, see, here's the important part. If you fold something like this, look at the S. See the S that's right there? If you fold, you can see kind of pulling back this way if you want to put that fold in. And so we'll look at it real close here. You can see this one folds this way. This one comes up this way. They're all folding up to be part of that. Imagine it looping around and pulling right into that center vein line. Everything flows out of the center vein line. So if I wanted to put something up here, I'm not sure I want to, but let's just do something. Let's change this for a second here. See, this one would come up this direction right up in there like that. That starts the fold. This one, we'll go a little more yellows right down here, would be a little longer coming in down like this. That folds right along into that one. And I could actually make the tips of this a little bit more yellow and darker yellow. So I use some yellow oxide and some yellow oxide and some Dahlia light there. And then the inside of it light. Now, why the inside light? It is because this is actually closer to that center vein line. So you're looking at the tip folded back. I hope that makes sense. You're looking at the tip folded back towards you. And that's kind of a neat way. That's kind of a neat little look. You put something a bit different in there. So it's not just always straight lines, of stuff folding together here. Not always just straight lines. You just put those, a little bit of those marks of those petals and stuff folding. We could have this one a little bit stiffer, pulling back this way. And that would be nice there. So it puts in that front little fold if you want to do it. If you want that to pop off a little bit more or so, then what you have to do is maybe even make this center here, and we'll curve it. We'll negative paint it with some light here. But some of the pinks from this center fold down so you can get some nice differences in the tone right in there. So you can see that nice little folded edge a little bit more. And it's all different kinds of ways. That's the fun part about it. Let's put in just a bit of that right up there. I'm not going to put in details of the stamen or anything like that. And we got to go back and finish this one. I got off into that little discussion there of the fold. And let's go back into to this one, and we'll put in some soft. Let's get some burnt sienna in with some of that. And we'll use our thin here so that there's not too much contrast here. And we'll just give the idea of this flowing in, maybe just a bit more of this folding in here. Slightly different tone and edges here. So on this side down here, we don't want to do too much of this, but we'll flow out. So here's the center vein line here. So the center vein line would come down here, down like that. And we'll go just a touch, let's go just a bit brighter here and put in some of the flow of those petals coming back. So here they would flow out this way, like that, see? Does it make sense, kind of? Maybe you have to wash it again. hopefully. you know, there's just thousands of ways to do it. But when you're looking at irises and stuff, look at the center vein, look for that center vein line and then how that flows. You know, that's going to be the key. Anytime I'm working up here on my main one, I'll use the open medium, a little thicker paint. I'm going to push in a little bit more color right here onto the tip of this so that we get a nice contrast here between these two here. Nice contrast between that violet and yellow right in there. And I could lighten that up a little bit more. We could change the blatant iris here a bit because, you know, we're artists. We can do that. We change that. I like that little bit of light. That's going to play the beard when we put the beard on there just a bit more. So it's a bit lighter than blatant actually is. This is David's blatant iris, okay? So it's a new variety. Here we go. Yeah, I like that. A little bit of that light come out there. That's kind of pretty. Push that in. Good. And we'll put a bit of that light pink right up into there. Let's go very soft, very thin, right out here, and just the impression of this fall right out here. And let that just kind of go away here. Boom. And push a bit of that light right in there. It doesn't need very much, right? Doesn't need very much. We can give the idea of this other one right out here. It doesn't need to be very much at all. Matter of fact, if I just do something like that, your eye will start to see that as the fall there, see? Okay, so maybe we want just a bit of light right out here onto the edge of this one. Pull in towards that center vein line, the edge here. All kinds of ways to do them there, just like that. You can use more of the chisel and make the edge really fluffy and stuff, or, you know, it's yours. You can do whatever you want to bend this over a bit, like that back one that's back there. And we'll streak in just a little more light there. That looks pretty good here. And I think I will build up, now that I got all that going there, I think maybe I'll build this up just a bit more here. And now I'm watching for my detail, how much, and I'm going to go for a little thicker paint this time here. Real thick paint here, and build that up, streak that just a bit there. See, I like that type of movement into a painting, and then this is me, but I like that type of movement more than this, using a liner brush or the chisel of the brush and doing that. I think this looks so much more painterly, and that's what I like it to do. I'm going to thin the shadow here, just a little thin bit, and just lightly run that right over that edge to push it into that center there, and let the front of it come out before I go put the beard on here. Okay, so we'll push that in there, here. Most of this is going to cover up by that beard though, but we don't have to paint a very big beard on it. Some of this pushing out that way, right into it there. That's kind of pretty. I do like that dried down in that center, and I was really enjoying that, so I'm going to lighten that up again right back through there. I did like that expression in there, right in there like that. And yeah, and let's push an edge, a nice edge of light right over here against that edge there. And now you can just take the corner of your brush, a little burnt sienna, a little yellow, sometimes put a little violet with it, and just work around in here just a bit to just emulate the crest, and if you want to put the stamen in and stuff like that, you know, maybe a little darker burnt sienna, maybe a touch of violet into that. It's kind of pretty. You know, you can put a bit of the detail in there. I'm not going to get carried away and fancy all up in there like that. But I'll put it on and maybe soften some of that down and through. And I always say, if you're not too sure about what to do, blur the heck out of it till no one can really see it. And it works. And that's Monet. I mean, that's what he said to do, is import those, and so you actually spark their creativity about everything that they see, what they're seeing inside of those areas there. Now, I think it'd be pretty to have a nice little brighter, lighter little stroke of buildup of this right up in here. That brighter, lighter violet will play against the yellow, the violet and the yellow here. So quinacridone, some thick white paint. Let's just build that just a bit, following the good flow of those petals there. We'll build that up just a bit more. This is my choice. You can do whatever you like to do that. I'm going to push that. I'm going to add it's just in a few areas where I want the viewer to track up and through. So I'll push a little more contrast of light dark into some of that there. If you see that. I think I'm just going to leave that just wispy and going away. And I like that other one back there, just wispy and going away there as well. I'm just going to take some Darulite here on the edge, if we're going to put the beard on, and just tap some of that through here. And maybe a little Hansa off to the one side here. And we'll build that up just a bit here. That gives a nice light. And then maybe a little light while all that's lit right on the corner of my brush. I like to work onto the corner of my brush because the taps aren't perfect. That's the neat thing about it there. And that'll help put that nice little beard on there. You can work some of these colors though. This right down in through here, and just tap this around and kind of start bringing some of this all together right down in here. Some of the movements here. So it's, everything's got to kind of fold together. So this is kind of an important little part of it, just bringing the corner of your brush here. And we can do this on this one. We don't want to do it on the other. It's too much interest. But we can kind of bring these all together right in here and flow those out after you put that beard on there like that. Okay, maybe I want this other side over here to advance over that edge more, so I'm going to do it all with dark and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's gonna, and then maybe take some of that softer color and push that right into there. I love setting the brush down and doing that mark, and then I'll just pull it just a bit to soften or what I call incorporate the colors together. They don't blend together. I don't want to blend them together. I want to incorporate them. Which means they mix up and around, but they don't go in there and make another tone by mixing together. I like, ooh. See, I wanted to show you what not to do. I got a little carried away there. We'll put a bit of the violet there, and then we'll push it here, taking off some of it, make it look like we know what we're doing still. We haven't lost it yet. And we'll go right in there like that. That's kind of nice. Nice little dark edge right in there. I'm going to restate some of that nice dark right down to that center line. Because this is the, really kind of pulling your eye this way. So let's just restate that. And I like how that blatant has like two very distinguishable center lines here. This one does. See, it has like two distinguishable center lines. I kind of like that. So kind of paint it here a bit. There we go. Just like that. That's kind of pretty. And I'm going to thin this and just a little bit softer and add just a bit to this side here. Like that. A little bit softer. So it brings that one up just a bit closer here. Okay. Now I'm going to rinse that out. And we're going to come back, come back up into this one here. Now, I like, like on her showing the basically the calyx and some of the stem. And I moved this over, but not quite enough, I don't think, to to really get that stem. So, but I can show a little bit of it here. Now I could thin that out and turn the petal if I wanted to see more of it, but I think I'll still get a decent amount of the line here of that stem. And I'm going to go right in front of this one and right behind that one. And we'll start to push some of this in. Let's get a little yellow and a little light here. And we'll just tap that along here, push a bit. I don't want to do too much mixing or anything like that here. And push some of that in. Get some of that burnt sienna and green, which I like. Here, it helps the other side of the stem. Here. Yep, just kind of push that around a bit. Let's put a softer little mark of that. Maybe even bring that edge, that angle in here. But we want it behind that one, sign it, so we'll just push a bit of that there. And we'll thin out, and this is where you can start adding some of the other movements here, ideas and movements of other ones. And maybe the idea of another one that's going to be coming right up here. So we'll take some of our soft yellows and lights and very softly just kind of paint the bud of one here that hasn't been opened up yet. And maybe just a hint of that pink in there. And I like to paint these oh so fast. Here, has not opened up. There, we got one going right in there. And it might be a bit too much light, but I think it'll be okay. And let's just push a bit more. As you get over here, you can just start carrying some of the color. So it doesn't, we can get that very much that, that nice impressionistic stuff that I love to paint. It's one of my, start to move the impressionism of it all. Now, if you want to, make this, I'm going to say best way, make this, like if you're looking at this front here and you want to see it a little bit more, look for your color contrast. So here, maybe, I'll push more light right up into the front of this petal here, into the front of that. So that pulls that light right down. If you want to see the overall, don't want it quite so yellow. I'm not a real yellow, I paint a lot of stuff. If you love yellow, boy, leave the yellow in there. If you don't like it, as much, then come back up over, and you can see how that softens down the expression of the iris. Of the iris here. So, and that's all up to you, how much you're going to do, what you want to do with that. I do like that as well. Okay, but then you can start carrying some of the other yellows around, like I'm doing, and just softening this out. That's pulling this one up a little bit more. Do you see the top of her head right here? There she is. Yes, I know. The problem is, see, I was smart. I took them for a walk before I went and filmed today, but they still know it's time for a walk. This is normal walk time. So even though they just went, see? Yeah. And see, there's the other one. Those you see, there's both. There's eyes. There's the other one there. The two sisters. Yes. So, it's my life. My crazy dogs. And so we'll push this back here, just like that. So you get a really quite a bit more interest into that iris. And it might be kind of fun to have a bit of the dark right there, right over here onto the back here. Right there, or just poking some of that in to get some of that contrast right in there to see that. That's up to you, how much contrast do you want to give your painting there, looking for that. But boy, you know, here's your zoom center again, right? If you don't want it to be quite so much zoom, you see what will happen the second I start to do this is I'm going to start taking away from some of this other bit here, right, of that one there, by adding just a little bit more here. It starts to pull your eye back down this way here as well. So that is that's a judgment call for you to make, how much you want to, you know, you can start looking at it to bridge just how much you want to pop that down, stuff there. But let's just start taking some of these colors and working them out here into some of these other tones here. And maybe we'll push a bit of that right out over there and see some of these colors and tones. This is, to me, is just one of the most fun parts about painting, is working your lights and your darks and your colors into the backgrounds and stuff here. I just love that. I'm just going to blur the edge of that iris there just a bit. You know, and I can look at, you know, do I want to really make a nice contrasty stroke right here, bringing in some light? Sometimes I'll just go ahead and wipe out some of the other things that I paint right there by it. Sometimes I'll take that edges right into there like that and just blur them out, you know. And there's all different kinds of ways. So sometimes I paint irises that are a lot more structurally perfect, let's put it that way. But I am really very much, and I used to always, you've seen some of the posts that I've made and stuff, you know, I used to be such a realist, and now I'm just like, I love Impressionism. Impressionism is where I want to go and work on. And so I just, to me, it's just kind of like, you know, bang, let's not be quite so perfect anymore. Let's just get some of this in there. That's where I like, that's what I like. And that, for me, as an artist, that's what sells a lot, too. Every one of us is different, though. But I'll just go back and revisit some of this. I hear you. Over there. That is my son's dog. So I have 4 dogs here today. So I'm taking care of their dogs. And they're not letting me film. So we'll go over here like this and just kind of use this to push the colors in and stuff like that. I think it just makes pretty, and you can get more, you know, you can get darker colors down through here, which helps anchor the bottom of your painting here like this. Pull in some of the darks down here, you know, get lights and darks, and this push some yellows in here, like ideas, little splashes of colors and yellows and stuff, like there's other things going on there here. And we go like that. So you don't even have to have anything over there. It could just be a nice, you know, splash of color. And how much defining do you want to define off you know, a little bit more of the movement of those petals? You know, do you do it with light and dark? So it's just kind of bringing it all together. But a lot of this that I'm bringing together like this right now, I start to also look at the frame. So I'm going to bring this frame in. And I know it's kind of hard to get the whole thing in like this here. And I start deciding here, you know, on what I want to frame. Now this painting can go light or dark, you know. But when I start to look at the frame, my idea here is basically, I like the paintings to be framed kind of dark. Let's step this back just a bit more here. I like paintings to be framed, it's just my own personal thing, a little bit more dark. I'm going to take some burnt sienna and start to look at this and maybe come right in here like this with some more of that burnt sienna right in there. That is a beautiful color, and it's a color that I really like, you know, to use within a frame too. So what I start to do is I start to imagine the frame, and a lot of times I will pull tones out of it into the frame, and that's what gives it its let's say its life. It is harmony, is, you know, pulling colors out from into the frame. So when I go here, put up my big brush here. So as I go to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to push this one. Actually, I need to have probably a little bit more. I like this ghost, but I just looked at this and probably a little bit more of this dark here, right up over here, and right up over here like this, so that gives just a little bit more of an impression of that petal right off over there, like that, just a bit more right off here. There, that kind of looks kind of good. And you know, I'm using some of that burnt sienna right out to there, which is a beautiful tone. Now, see, I use that. So once I start to do that, then I start to look at, you know, so these have some soft colors. Sometimes I'll pick out the frame and maybe take a soft yellow back down into the frame. Maybe I'll take like a yellow and a burnt sienna, and we'll thin this out here. We'll thin this right out like this. Let's put a little green into this as well. I start to find colors out of the composition and stuff, and that's what I start to work into my frame here that I see. And so I don't always just like go right to the burnt umbers and all that kind of stuff. I start looking at colors from my palette here, and sometimes it is quite a process of you know, I pick out some of the colors here, and I start washing it on, and I'll change 5-6 times during the washing on of the frame here, and you know, change the tone, and I just let the tones change. So I start out something like that, and then I'll start, you know, darkening it down. What's a complement of the burnt siennas? The blue. If I want to darken it down, I'll use a little bit of my blue, which I used into the backgrounds and stuff. And I can start looking at that a little darker here. And this is what I do when I start to adjust my frame. Now, then I wipe back like this, and you get some lovely, you know, light, dark, architectural difference from the routes and stuff like that. And you know the frame is going to go with your painting because you're using everything from your painting, you see. And so you can set that up, and you can see how that particular frame or how that's going to particularly look in something like that, you know. And it's just a real great way to do that. And so as I'm bringing a painting together, a lot of times, boy, you know, well, there's about half the time, I'd say it's a good half the time, I start picking out the frame, especially if I had the frame pre-made for this, and I start harmonizing my frame to my painting here, what I want to have in this you know, particular painting. But and you may go back and forth several times and start deciding that, hey, I want to, you know, your frame may start dictating some changes and stuff in your painting. Like, you know, maybe I want to have a little bit more interest right up here into the standards on this one here. You know, a little bit more light interest right up into the front. So that pulls that light, and you can see that that interest there. Let's put a bit more streaky yellow right in here. Nice bright streaky yellow. And right back to some lights right up here to fold it right into that S. There, take that movement right into to that S. There. Tapping little things along. Adding little bits more of movement, especially right up there into that center of interest one. Grabbing some of these colors here. And pulling that over. And yeah, it really makes quite a bit of difference. So, you know, and you can position whatever you like on something like this. I kind of like this one, but I'm probably going to bring this one up just a touch more, being real careful because I want to preserve everything on this one here as the center of interest. But this one could come up just a touch more. We'll thin out and just add a touch or two more to that, to the S and to that front petal there as this one comes up to the light right in here. And I think that's probably what I'll leave it kind of very simplistic, but it has just a bit more difference. And what starts to do that is is the working of the frame. So many times, many times, as I'm painting, I forgot to add the beard to this one too. Many times when I'm painting something like this, I will, especially if I'm not quite sure, do I need more or not, I go start dropping it into a frame, sitting back and evaluating it. That's basically what I want to say to you, is get the frame out. Before you make a judge, oh, is this horrible? Some of you write to me and say, oh, this is horrible, terrible. I can't do it like you do, blah, 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 blah. Don't think that way. No, don't think that way. Just get over that right away, because it just takes practice and it takes time, and everybody can do it. It just takes time and practice. And, if one acrylic line is not working for you, change to a different line. Find one that works for you in your area that you can get reasonably and works. And, and you can do it. You can certainly do it. But, and then figuring it out and evaluating it out and figuring out what needs to, what do I need to change? What do I need to build? And sometimes dropping it into the frame is a great way to help you evaluate your paintings, because the frame gives an elegance to it. How many times have you painted something and you go, and then you drop it in the frame and you go, oh wow, because the frame, brings it all together. Drops it in, brings it all together. So there's all different kinds of ways to do that. I think I'll add another softer little tulip over here. And then the dogs say it's time. I took him for a walk right before I did this. I said, I'm not going to get distracted by them today. But I love them. They're good dogs. So we'll put a little bit more of a casual one over here. I just love painting ghosts and casual stuff here. See, because you don't have to do that much. After I already have the iris, this iris here painted, you start to see the iris, in these others. You don't have to do that much. That's why I just love casual alla prima like that. That's kind of pretty. See, and I love those last powerful textured light strokes that set that flow. As long as they flow together, you get a nice, beautiful look to it. Okay, I've talked too much. Okay, so please click like, okay? We hope you do that, and hope you give it a try. I'm going to go finish up this frame and stuff. And over into the on the community tab, I found the community tab. I didn't know there was a community tab, and I started posting some photos and stuff up there. And I'll post a finished photo of this if you want to take a look at it. Go look up Catherine Klein. She has all kinds. Just put in Catherine Klein iris, and you'll see all kinds of stuff to do there. Put in blatant, BLANTANT, and iris, and you'll see the one that you'll find all kinds of photos of those. There's hundreds of them out there. Like I say, there's over 300 varieties. There's another really beautiful iris that I've painted several times. It's called City Lights. It is beautiful. Those of you who like violets and whites, beautiful. You give that a try. Give that with the same try with these types of techniques. It's beautiful. I'm going to put just a bit more contrast right in there, because I can. Here we go. Just a bit more. Oof. Boy, that's getting contrasty there, Dave. So, I better stop. Okay, so City Lights, if you like that one, it's really great as well, okay? Don't forget about our Painted Simply channel, site, guys. Our other YouTube channel, Painted Simply. I put up a big, full-blown 2-hour, 50-minute easel painted composition on roses and stuff on there. I'm going to have some more stuff this week coming up there as well. So make sure you go over there and get and do that, okay? And I had one lady that wrote me and asked me to break down the beginning rose one more time. And I know we want to move on to landscapes and stuff like that, but she wrote such a lovely email to me. I'm going to do that real quick, probably put it up this weekend, try to film that and get that up this weekend. Breaking that rose, that beginning rose down just a little bit different. Maybe an alla prima version of it, so she can work with it a little bit easier. Okay? All right. I'll see you guys. Good. Doesn't that palette look gorgeous? I just saw that on camera. Doesn't that look gorgeous? You can frame that palette if you don't like me. You just move that right over there. Just looks like an iris right there. Okay. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and thanks for all of your support on our channel. My family, and I really appreciate it. Okay. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.